What's up, guys? Welcome back to CagedIn MMA. It's your host, Ebitz Ochiwa, and this is episode 8 post UFC 292, baby. And man, did we have a card on our hands last night. And there's so much to talk about. There wasn't many knockouts on this card or finishes, but definitely the fights, a lot of these fights did come out and make up for that. So we've been a little spoiled with a lot of knockouts the past, UFC events, etc. But luckily, these fighters came to fight, and we did get some, knockouts, some dominant performances, and some beautiful performances as well. So, as you guys know, let's start this off with first and foremost, Dana White call out. Dana White, as you know, I've been a huge fan for very, very long. I've been consistent in buying the pay-per-views since Bisping and GSP. Now, I've been a fan for much longer, even since like I talked about in my last podcast, Damian Maia versus Chris Weidman in 2012, and then you got the era of Lyoto Machida, even Chael Sonnen, Uncle Chan undefeated, right? But yes, sir. So, I'm trying to watch these fights in person. I've always watched it at home. I mean, tickets are expensive, you know what I'm saying? Especially with this economy. So, come on, Dana White, fly me out, fly me to a fight. Look at all these dolls, I've spent money on, pay-per-views, this watch, right? I got the Bruce Buffer perfume. Prime, come on, sponsor me as well. You know what I'm saying? So either Bruce Buffer, Prime, UFC collectibles, whoever it may be, you already know. I'm all for sponsors, etc. But Dana White, come on, be a friend. Fly me out. Let me experience these fights in person. You know what I'm saying? So I want to experience that vibe. But anyways, everybody comment down below, tag Dana White, and yeah. So next thing we start off with is trivia. As you guys know, I asked 3 questions. If you get it wrong and you're watching with a friend, you got to get hit. If you get it right, then give yourself a pat on the back. But comment down below while I do this trivia, and let's see if you get these answers correct. So, first question: who got fight of the night on UFC 292? I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer. Comment down below your answer. So the answer is Katona versus Gibson. And we are going to definitely go over this fight. It was a beautiful performance for the TUF finale. And man, these two fighters definitely came out to fight and bang. And it's crazy. Like, my personal opinion is both of these fighters should get a UFC contract. Unfortunately, that's not how the UFC works. But who knows? Dana White, come on. Anyways, comment down below if you got that question right. Second question: who did Ian Gary call out after his win at UFC 292? So the answer is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And I called it right in the last podcast or video. If you guys saw, I was like, if he wins, who shall he fight? And I believed it was either going to be Vicente Luque or Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And after his performance, I really believed a great, phenomenal fight would be against Wonderboy. Why? Because these, obviously, we know Wonderboy as a phenomenal striker, and he called him out. We'll go over whatever, what Thompson said later on in this video. And is it good? Is it not good? Who knows? Stay tuned and find out. So, third question: when is O'Malley planning on fighting again? Now, as you guys know, I'm pretty sure it's heard across the whole world, especially if you're watching this video. That means you're a fan. And O'Malley got the win via knockout or TKO. And yeah, so I know he spoke about it even before his this fight in the press conference, but now it's the post conference. He got the win, and he talked about it in the post fight conference. So, who did he say, or when did he say he wants to fight again? So, he's planning on fighting in December again against Cheeto Vera in Vegas. So that's his, you know, that's what he's looking forward to. That's what he's looking towards. He didn't take too much damage. The fight only lasted 2 rounds. He did very good, staying on the outside. But again, we'll go over that later on in this video. I don't want to get too much in it. This is just trivia. So if you got those answers correct, good job. If you didn't, you better find a friend or something to get hit in the face. You know what I'm saying? Because you lacking. So next things next is fight news. So as you guys know, I get some news that has been released early on or during the break of the podcast slash videos. So I got some new news, but obviously this one actually is just shocking for me personally, and let me know if it's shocking for you as well. So first and foremost, we got Grasso versus Shevchenko. Now, obviously, this fight has been announced since a while ago. The only thing is that I didn't realize it was just a UFC fight night and not a pay per view. Especially how the first fight went with them, for it to be Grasso versus Shevchenko, two, for just a UFC fight night on September 16th and not a pay per view, it's insane. Like, now, I don't know if there's a reason for that. I don't know. Who knows? Comment down below if you guys know if there's a reason behind that. But I was super shocked. Like, this is a fight that I'm super excited for, right? So the fact that it's not pay per view, it's a championship fight, is insane. And like I say, I was looking at the fight card, and I don't know, I mean, if it has to do something with like they're trying to do like a Women's Day or something. I don't know if it's International Women's Day. Who knows? But all I know is there's a lot of women fighting on this fight card, and one being including Tracy Cortez, obviously, which is in another very up and comer. Obviously, she got a lot of, she's very out in the public now and getting a lot of attention, especially after her breakup with Brian Ortega. But anyways, that being said, the funny thing is, speaking of that, freaking Costa, Paulo Costa, his post with her. But anyways, super funny. But if you guys know, I was super shocked when I saw, during UFC 292, they were releasing the next, 4 events, and I see Grasso and Shevchenko. I thought it was going to be on the next pay per view, but then I realized, I was like, oh no, it's its own main event on UFC Fight Night. So it's crazy, but I'm definitely looking super forward to that fight. Obviously, I'm going for. I like both. I'm a huge fan of Shevchenko and Grasso. Now, if I had a if I had to choose one personally, I'd go for the Mexican because I'm Mexican. But Shevchenko, man, every time she fights, I'm rooting for her. And so this one is kind of like Shevchenko versus Grasso. I go for both of these fighters. I admire both of these fighters, and they're phenomenal strikers, etc. And Grasso definitely in the first fight, she proved herself to be a phenomenal striker at the elite level of Valentina Shevchenko. So that's insane. So, we got that. Next, Conor McGregor, right? He's set to come back in December. Now, this is not confirmed, but during the post fight conference, Dana White did state that he predicts Conor coming back next year. So, obviously, Dana White knows more than what we know. But Conor and Chandler have been looking forward to December still. Conor has obviously tweeted, but we all know how Conor is. He could tweet whatever and then just get publicity and the news talking and everything, just like I am right now. All right. But Dana White predicts he'll come back next year. Conor says he's coming back in December. Michael Chandler is like, whatever, I'm just trying to fight him. Right. So who knows? Who knows when this fight will take place? Nothing is confirmed yet. Everything is just predictions, talk in the talk. Obviously, we got USADA, things like that. But Michael Chandler said he wasn't, worried about the USADA pool with Conor McGregor being tested, etc. So who knows? Obviously, it's kind of like more than obvious that Conor was on something, especially to heal that fast due from his injury. But again, we once the USADA he gets tested, then we'll see and see if anything gets confirmed from there. So next fight news is this is more of a question, and it's like, does Demetrius Johnson still want to fight Aljamain Sterling after UFC 292? So, obviously we heard that DJ was trying to, uh, wanted to fight Aljamain Sterling because of how good he is, because of how dominant he has been, and it's kind of like one of those where DJ was like, okay, well, I see how good he is, but I know I could dominate him. DJ was talking about he has no clinch game. He will outstrike him and everything. And seeing how O'Malley knocked Sterling out and was able to keep his distance, Sterling couldn't take O'Malley down. I think DJ may just be like, I would beat him. Like it's like no need for me to fight him. So who knows? That's the one I'm looking for because that would be an amazing fight. That's a fight where I was like, man, like I definitely want to see this fight, right? Because DJ would have to go up in weight, and the fact that obviously you got two greats, DJ being considered one of the greatest of all time against Aljamain Sterling to be considered the greatest bantamweight of all time, you know, for them to clash heads, man, that would be a beautiful fight. But like I said, who knows? That's the one where obviously DJ right now he's with Bradley Martin trying to get that set up. But next thing you know, uh, does he still want to fight Aljamain Sterling, or is it more where he's like, all right, whatever, that's no longer done because Sterling is no longer champ and dominant. So who knows? But I'm definitely looking forward to those news. All right, let's get into UFC 292. We're going to start with early prelims. Luckily, our first fight, we did have a finish. After that, a bit, it kind of went, more towards decisions, and it was looking good, man. I was like, oh, bet another fight card with more, a ton of finishes. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way, but we got Marine Silva, versus Moraz, and she wins by a guillotine choke. And this was actually insane because she won right at the buzzer at round one, right? It was like in 2 seconds, she started tapping, Moraz started tapping, and she only had like the ref took her off at 1 second. So that means if she just didn't tap, she could have probably made it. But it's also the fact that, just think about it. Like she knew she only had less than 10 seconds, right? Because right at 10 seconds is when Silva got the choke in. But then, so you hear obviously the clap, but then she had a tap. She knew she had a tap. So that I can't imagine how tight that guillotine was. Obviously, it looks super deep, but the fact that, not only does it need to be deep, like for example, Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski, it was super deep. But the fact that, the way more pressure, she hyperextended herself. So I can't imagine what she was feeling to be like, okay, I'm tapping, there's only 2 seconds, but I can't support it for the 2 more seconds, right? So it's insane. I'm actually super surprised that she, tapped. I thought she was going to be like, okay, round two, she's gonna make it to the next round, but no, she got the finish at the buzzer of round one. So next we got Andre Petrosky versus Gerald, and this was a split decision. Um, Now, this one was kind of, where fans were hoping to get a lot more action, and they did come out perform way better than the previous fight before them. But although fans were, on their feet, they were like just when Petrosky came out and he was putting in came out basically fast paced, right, throwing these shots in the first round, etc., going wild. It got fans more up and going because the previous fight, like I said, this fight this fight card didn't have a lot of finishes and not so much action, but some fights did come out and perform. But Andre Petroski against, a veteran like Gerald, Petroski got a split decision win. So congrats to him. Let's move on to the prelims. And this is where it starts getting interesting. And so we obviously got the prelims. And our first fight for the prelims is the TUF finale. So obviously we got Brad Katona versus Cody Gibson. Amazing fight. I mean, these guys set a record, I think, for the fourth most significant strike struck, or fourth most total strikes struck between in the bantamweight division. So imagine, I mean, these guys were just, are at the TUF finale, right? So amazing, super fast pace. Like this, it was an insane pace where it's like this actually reminded me of Paulo Costa versus Yoel Romero. So it was actually, one of those where I'm like, sheesh, like, I'm up on my feet. I'm just like, dang, like, So even like Joe Rogan, DC, everybody, all the fans, like, they were just up and going, like cheering. The vibe was just different because, like I said, these guys were on an insane pace. Now, speaking of that, we saw Cody Gibson's corner. This was actually funny. So Cody Gibson, when they were showing his corner talk, man, his coach, that man needs a voice coach because the way he was screaming, he didn't like. It's like he was just like he lost his voice and everything. So it was a brief period, like a minute, of him screaming and yelling, and you could barely understand him because his voice was so cracky. But that was just funny to me. But Katona, he obviously got the win by unanimous decision. He got two 29-28s and a 30-27. So beautiful performance by him. Although I believe Cody Gibson deserves a shot in the UFC, deserves another shot, in getting that contract. But like I said, I mean, the way the UFC works and how the contracts are made and how the TUF finale is set up, I mean, it's a beautiful performance by both of them. Obviously, both of them got fight of the night, 50 G's to each of them. But now Brad Katona moves on to 15-2, and he is the only person to win twice, the TUF finale twice. So congrats to him. And literally, I mean, this was a fight where, man, like it's crazy. Like when you tell your friends that don't know about the UFC or MMA in general and be like, hey, watch a fight, or like, hey, you should watch this fight. That's a fight to show them, it's not like, it's not even a champion, like, they're not number one. They're not even in the UFC technically yet, right? They were fighting for the UFC contract, right? Obviously, the Ultimate Fighter is part of the UFC. It's called the UFC, right? Ultimate Fighter Championship. But like I said, to actually establish that UFC contract, they had to win, and Katona is the only one to do so twice. And man, it's a beautiful, beautiful fight and performance, and definitely got the fight of the night. And honestly, they should have got like 100 grand each because of the way they performed and the fans, man, especially after all the previous fights, the way they opened those prelims, beautiful. So next, we got Kurt Holloway versus Austin Hubbard, and Kurt won round two via triangle choke. And man, this was a beautiful transition into the triangle choke, and we'll talk about that. So it started off with Kurt dropping Hubbard, and man, Kurt just proceeded to dominate the ground game. Right, Kurt is such a phenomenal, jiu-jitsu practitioner, etc. And the way he controlled Hubbard on the ground, and literally Kurt lands, I believe it was like a overhand right, drops Hubbard, and he was first on top trying to get the rear naked choke. Then they they turned over, but as they turned over, Kurt grabs the arm, right, for the armbar and is trying to get the armbar. Unfortunately, he slips out. So what does he do? He turns around and slips in that triangle choke while Hubbard is still trying to position himself in a better way. So beautiful. That was one where I was like, man, the way he transitioned into that triangle, phenomenal. So, all respect to Kurt, and literally, like, that was just a very dominant performance once it got to the ground game, and literally Hubbard just had couldn't do anything against Kurt. So definitely, a beautiful performance by him. Next, we got Gregory Rodriguez versus Dennis Talulin, and this was also another dominant performance. That's what I'm saying. Like, obviously these fights ended in finishes, etc. But man, some of these decisions and uh, decision wins, they were also very entertaining. But Rodriguez, that's another finish, and Rodriguez, man, round one took him down easily within a minute, and I honestly didn't expect nothing less from Rodriguez. He's world champ jiu-jitsu, a jiu-jitsu world champion, and so, the fact that, I kind of knew, if he wanted to play it safe, he would take him to the ground. And, actually, speaking of that, I think, if we go to UFC, the fantasy picks, I predicted every fight other than two fights on this fight card. And we'll get to that actually because I do want to talk about that. I'm super obviously happy I was able to predict them. But, anyways, we got Gregory Rodriguez obviously dominating Dennis Talulin, and he takes him down within a minute and then starts ground and pound. Right, he was trying to more of, you could tell, set up that submission win, etc. But then he's transitioned to like a full mount, and Rodriguez then, started going for the ground and pound. But then Talulin, he unfortunately turned around and gave him his back, and that's when you know Rodriguez started the vicious elbows. And now, this is where it gets interesting because there was one where it seemed like it was an illegal strike that put out Talulin, right? So, even DC was talking about it. He said that, the strike that put Talulin out, it appears to be an elbow to the back of the head. So if Talulin really wanted to, dispute it and, focus on his MMA record and take it, I guess, to the commissioners, he could do so and probably win. So, that is it's very difficult, especially after a performance like that. Though it's kind of like, well, you were still going to lose, but also like, I who knows? Who knows what could happen in this fight game. So, you know, uh, but yeah, Rodriguez definitely, he started the ground and pound, got the vicious elbows in, and knocked out Talulin. I think it was the first strike. It's like Talulin was out, and then he got another one. Ref called it, but who knows? Like, if it was an illegal strike, it was an illegal strike. But we'll see what Talulin does and what his team decides to do with that, especially how the fight went. But good job to Rodriguez, obviously, and honestly, I can't wait to see more of this guy. Obviously, being such a good elite high level fighter and jiu-jitsu practitioner, it's amazing, especially in the division they are in. You know, I mean, you got Izzy as champ, which is a striker. Now Strickland, a striker. You got a lot of strikers at the top of the game. So for one to be mainly like a jiu-jitsu practitioner, etc., it would be a change of pace as well. So, I'm definitely excited to see what's next for Gregory Rodriguez. Next, we got Brad Tavares versus Chris Weidman. And this was the fight I wanted to kind of talk about. So I was getting all of my picks right. And unfortunately, I kind of let emotions play into this fight. I'm a huge fan of Chris Weidman and a huge fan of Brad Tavares as well. But obviously, Chris Weidman being the veteran he is, just the fighter he is, it was kind of like, I let my emotions be like, oh no, I choose him. Even though in the back of my head, I was like, Brad Tavares is going to win this fight. But literally, if you go check my fantasy MMA picks, I literally got all of them right except Chris Weidman and Brad Tavares, simply because I really let my emotions get in the way. So, but Brad Tavares, obviously, phenomenal job. He won 30-27, obviously winning every round. And he injured Weidman, man. And I think it's time for Chris Weidman to retire. Even Dana White said it, right? But Brad Tavares, he injured his leg that wasn't the leg that Chris Weidman broke. So I believe Chris Weidman broke his right leg, but during the fight he injured his left leg. So Chris Weidman tore his ACL or MCL. So that's another year that he's going to be out. So, Dana White was even saying like, well, at that point, it's honestly just time to retire, right? So, I honestly do believe that it is time for Chris Weidman to retire. He's been in the game. He's been at the top of the game. He's fought the best of the best. He has nothing more to prove. Obviously, as a fighter, you don't want to stop. But at the same time, some people just need to know when to call it quits. And I think, it's time for Chris Weidman, especially him needing to be out for another year due to his injury. So, yeah, I personally believe Chris Weidman should retire as well. But what is next for Brad Tavares, right? And comment down below who you guys think he should fight, because he has been dominant against other fighters, but when he fights the best of the best, he gets dominated. So, when it comes to Israel Adesanya, Duplessis, Robert Whitaker, like these fighters, he fights and gets dominated by, but he is beating everybody else, right? So, very excited to see what's next for him. Do I think he has the championship level skills? I don't think he has it yet, but obviously after his performance against Chris Weidman, it was beautiful. Obviously, you see this guy very, improving a lot. So, like I said, comment down below what you guys think is next for Brad Tavares. He's obviously a spectacular fighter, and he always brings in a brawl, man. So, which was what it was against Chris Weidman. So, yeah, comment down below and tell me what you guys think is next. So, next we got the main event of the evening with Marlon Cheeto Vera versus Pedro Munoz. And man, it was a good performance by Cheeto. And both of these fighters came and, they struck. I don't think there was a takedown. Each one got a takedown attempt, but nobody got the actual takedown. And it was beautiful, beautiful fight. I would say I really enjoyed it personally, but definitely Cheeto outstruck Munoz, and Cheeto is definitely going to get the next title shot. Obviously Sean O'Malley already called him out for it, and they were saying Sean O'Malley was like, what did Cheeto do? He made a boring fight, I bet, etc. But honestly, I enjoyed the fight. It was very technical, I believe, and that's why I mainly enjoyed it. But definitely Cheeto Vera came in and showed that he is a high level striker. Obviously, against his performance versus Corey Sandhagen, Corey Sandhagen played it smart, played it safe, and dominated him on the ground, etc. But for Marlon Cheeto Vera to win the way he did against a very high level striker as well, it'd be an amazing fight. Especially the fact that you got to think about it. Cheeto Vera and O'Malley, the first fight, they were on the feet, right? So, then obviously O'Malley, he unfortunately got injured to the knee, so he couldn't stand, right? So he fell, and that's when Cheeto got the ground and pound. But even after, right? So in this in the second fight, obviously, we'll most likely see them keep this fight on the feet, and is going to be a striking fight, and I'm very excited to see that. Obviously we saw O'Malley just knock out Sterling, but like I said, Cheeto will definitely get the next title shot, I believe, if he stays out of an injury, etc. So next we got Neil Magny versus Ian Gary, and this was insane. I mean, this was one where I was like, oh my goodness, the domination that Ian Gary got on Neil Magny was insane. I mean, Ian won 30-24. Like, how, like, just comprehend that, a 30-24, right? And that means you got 3 10-8 rounds, man, and it's insane. So he definitely dominated Neil Magny. I mean, the first leg kick that Ian Gary threw destroyed Magny. It dropped Magny. And man, at first I thought he kicked him when Neil Magny was obviously reaching in for a strike, so he kind of like made him lose his balance. But man, no, it definitely he fell because it definitely hurt Neil Magny. So, Ian Gary kept, performing well, hitting those leg kicks, hitting those calf kicks, and it paid off, man. It kept dropping Neil Magny. Neil Magny is a dog, though. He really stayed in that fight. You saw him even limping to walk. You saw him dragging his leg. And man, I was thinking, I was like, why doesn't this guy switch his stance and go to southpaw? But you got to understand, he probably doesn't know how to fight southpaw. So you got to understand, a lot of these fighters, they stay in their orthodox stance. And man, if you got to switch to southpaw when times get there, you got to know how to, you know, um, basically just work with what you got. And yeah, it's kind of like, man, Ian Gary definitely came in and proved himself to be a high level striker, and fighter in general. So obviously, Ian Gary, he made Neil Magny seem like he literally never fought in the octagon before. I mean, I don't believe Neil Magny even did any sort of damage to Ian Gary at all. So, and I honestly, now thinking about it, I should probably check the stats on that fight, because, it's like, I obviously know Ian Gary dominated, but man, like, I don't think Neil Magny really did anything. It's kind of like he was just getting beaten there, pieced up and everything. So it was insane. It was kind of like one of those fights where you got Holloway versus Qatar. Like, Holloway obviously destroyed Qatar and made him look like, just an unranked opponent. So that's how good Ian Magny is. And obviously, after his performance, Ian Magny calls out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And I called it. I said he's going to fight either Stephen Wonderboy Thompson or Vicente Luque. And he ended up calling out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And when he called him out, I was literally like, oh, yeah, this is the fight to make. This is exactly who he should fight. That's a perfect call out, perfect opponent. He called him out, saying that he will outstrike him. That means Ian Gary, being the wrestler and kind of wrestler he is, and knowing, because he is a good wrestler. But to say that he's going to outstrike one of the best strikers we have ever seen, is insane, right? Obviously, you see Stephen Wonderboy's resume. The people he's lost to, they're mainly wrestlers, right? Because they know Stephen Wonderboy's weakness. But when you get in the striking game with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, such as like Kevin Holland, etc., did, Stephen Wonderboy is a dominant opponent. So, it's crazy to think that. But unfortunately, the bad news, and this is what I was talking about earlier, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson supposedly denied Ian Gary's fight. Dana White, in the post-fight conference, they asked him, hey, is Ian Gary going to fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson? And Dana White proceeded to answer him and say he denied the fight. He doesn't want to fight Ian Gary. So maybe he changes up his mind. Who knows in the backstage what's going on? Who knows if Stephen Wonderboy is looking for more money, or if he is just simply uh, scared to fight Ian Gary, maybe because it might bring him back. It doesn't push him closer to a title fight. Fighting an opponent less ranked than you, obviously, you have more to lose than to gain. So Wonder Boy obviously is searching that title fight. And so I would understand, but I don't know what's going on in the back, end of this fight game. But Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is supposedly he denied the fight per Dana White. So, like I said, I mean, that would have been a beautiful fight, beautiful performance. And honestly, it's kind of like one of those where even in the future, I'm super excited to see and super excited to see how it plays out. So, I'm hoping I'm hoping they fight right in the future. But yeah, if not, I think Ian Gary does fight Vicente Luque if Stephen Wonderboy Thompson still keeps denying that fight. So next we got Zhang Wei Li versus Amanda Lemos for the co-main event of the evening. And we got Wei Li, she dominated. I mean, a 50-43, 50-44. But let's go ahead and talk about the judges with the 49-45. Come on. How do you score a 49-45 for John Wei Lee? I mean, do you really who had who had Lemus winning a round? Who? I don't understand it. Like, how do you give Wei Lee 49 instead of 50? Like, how do you give her a 9 round fight? Like, I don't understand it. 9 point round fight. So it's just, and I don't even know what round they said he, Wei Lee, I mean, lost, but that's just insane. To have a 49-45 is freaking insane. I mean, John Wei Lee, she hit 296 strikes compared to Amanda Lemos 29 total strikes. I mean, to strike from 296 to 29, I mean, where could you even see a 49 points to John Wei Lee? Like, what round out of those 5 rounds did she lose? Like, I just don't understand. So, it's just crazy. But the way John Wei Lee, she dominated Amanda Lemos. I honestly predicted that, it was going to be a finish by round 2 or 3. But Amanda Lemos, I mean, she definitely stayed in there, fought her way through, survived during that fight, and man, it was beautiful. Even though, on the feet, when they were on the feet, Amanda Lemos was hitting her with some great shots. It was kind of like, I think she tagged John Wei Lee like once or twice. But obviously, the elite fighter John Wei Lee is she saw she was getting caught, took Amanda Lemos to the ground. No, there was no literally difficulty in taking Amanda down. Amanda Lemos came in that fight with like an 82 or 84% takedown defense. Literally, John Wei Lee, every single time she went in for that takedown, she got every takedown. So beautiful, dominant performance by John Wei Lee. But what is next for her? That division, obviously, she's lost to Rose Namajunas twice, but just beat Carla Esparza. After Carla Esparza versus Rose Namajunas, the way that fight went, I don't even think Dana wants to book Rose Namajunas, right? Or even Carla Esparza. But anyways, John Wei Lee is obviously champion. Rose Namajunas has beat her twice, but I don't think they fight for the third time yet, right? I still believe maybe John Wei Lee should fight Yan Zionanan, and the number 3 uh, in that division, and she's currently with a record of 17-3. Or does she fight the number 4 contender, which is Tatiana Suarez, and which she is 11-0? Or who knows? Does number 3 and number 4 fight, and then you get the title shot? So I'm definitely, waiting to see what is next for John Wei Lee. I don't think she fights Carla Esparza again after being so dominant, and I don't think she fights Rose Namajunas, simply because I don't think, I guess, more towards the business perspective, it doesn't make sense. So who knows? I'm definitely, obviously, excited to see John Wei Lee fight again. Man, she was one of those fighters where I was like, man, when is she going to fight again? When is she going to fight again? Like, come on! I really enjoy seeing Wei Lee fight, and I'm super glad that she fought last night for you on UFC 292, because I got to experience that again, and just seeing her so dominant, so powerful, and just like one of those fighters where I wouldn't even attempt to fight, right? So, it's insane. But yeah, comment down below who you think she fights next. Last but not least, for the main event of the evening, Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley, the Sugar Show. And welcome to the Sugar Show, baby, because we got Sugar O'Malley by knockout round two. Beautiful, beautiful performance. Many people doubted him. I think Dana White was even talking to the reporters. Out of 70 reporters, only one person had Sean O'Malley winning. I don't think anybody, even the odds, had Sean O'Malley winning, right? Because, I called it, I said if, I thought Sterling was going to win by submission, but I said if Sterling doesn't win, the only way that O'Malley could possibly win, in my personal opinion, was a knockout, and that's what he did. But he definitely impressed me, just overall, simply because Sterling, he didn't take him down, but Sterling was talking in the post fight conference, and he said it was simply that O'Malley did very great staying on the cage, keeping his distance, right? So Sterling couldn't find an opportunity to take him down. So literally, I mean, O'Malley did super great, changing directions, changing his stance, staying on that cage, going around the cage, right, keeping his distance, and it was a beautiful performance by Sugar Sean O'Malley. And Sterling, even it got Sterling actually attempted to take him down twice, and O'Malley, he couldn't take down O'Malley. So that shows you that even though O'Malley isn't known for his wrestling or anything, especially a high level wrestler as Sterling is, and a ground practitioner, it's just insane to see that Sterling couldn't take Sean O'Malley down, especially after Sterling's performance with Henry Cejudo. Like, it's just insane. But styles make fights, and that's what happened. So obviously, O'Malley, I think because of his length, he has kind of a big advantage, right? We see it with a lot of taller guys with length as well. With Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya. I mean, the lengthier you get, the harder it is to take you down. Max Holloway. So it was definitely a beautiful performance by Sugar Sean O'Malley, and literally Sterling, obviously, he couldn't take him down, and he overextended and got knocked out by a counter right to the chin, and literally Sterling face planted. Now, here's the thing: is that I don't. Uh, it's kind of one of those. And comment down below your opinion. Do you think the fight should have been stopped, or do you think it could have continued? I'm kind of on the verge where it's like I don't blame the ref for stopping it, but I also wouldn't have blamed him if he would have kept it going. So even after the first shot, right? The first shot, I mean, you got to understand. I mean, Sterling face planted, right? He literally kissed the canvas. So the fact that that happened, and then he wasn't really defending. He was kind of on the ground, trying to, maneuver out and recover. And then Sugar Sean O'Malley, obviously his length, man, he kept striking Sterling to the face and hitting his face and everything. So, then you had once Sterling turned around, that's when Mark Goddard called the fight. But it's also one of those where it's like you see it with Kobe Covington, etc. Like, you do, you turn around and cover yourself so you could hopefully switch stance. Maybe they get on your back and then you switch stance and you recover like that. So who knows? But comment down below. And obviously Sterling, he said he was fine. He was perfectly fine. But also he didn't complain about the stoppage. And that's actually a huge respect out to Sterling for not complaining, not being one of those fighters like, hey, like screw you, the ref, he caught it too early, etc. No, he was very professional about it. He was like, look, I could have continued, I could have kept going, but I don't blame the ref for stopping the fight the way he did. And that's perfect. But like I said, Sterling, he overextended. Many compare his knockout to Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. Obviously, it's going all over the internet, all over the news, and literally Sean O'Malley, right? They're comparing his knockout to Jose Aldo, since Jose Aldo, he came in overextended. Conor McGregor came in, knocked him out with the left hook. Same thing with Sean O'Malley, Sterling overextended with the right, and then Sean O'Malley capitalized. He slipped it and then counter right to the chin. So, like I said, beautiful performance, beautiful comparison as well. But yeah, so what's next for Sean O'Malley? Obviously, Sean O'Malley, he calls out Cheeto Vera in December, and that's what he's eyeing. Like I said, I don't think Sterling took much damage in that fight at all. And, not Sterling. I don't think Sean O'Malley took that much damage in that fight. So, you know, Sean O'Malley, I think he's fresh. I think he could come back in December. Gives him a few months to do a whole camp and literally recover and take a little break and party or whatnot. So, obviously, I'm looking forward to the next Sugar Show, right? So, then we got Sterling. Sterling was in the post fight conference. He's not sure if he wants to go up in weight or go for the rematch. This is also, I wouldn't like to be in his position, man, simply because if he goes for the rematch, he has to think about Marab, right? Marab and him, Marab agreed to not fight Sterling because they're, teammates. But it's also like, well, if Sterling goes in for the rematch and wins, you're making Marab the number one contender wait even longer simply because he's doing his duty as a friend to not fight you, obviously. But obviously, as your teammate and as a fighter, you still want that championship belt. So does Sterling go up in weight? Obviously, we saw, Sterling be hesitant, and Joe Rogan asked him about moving up to weight, and Sterling said, man, like, if I could get knocked out like that with Sean O'Malley, who knows what Alexander Volkanovski, the number one pound for pound, tied up with John Jones, will do to me. So, it's kind of like one of those where Sterling is in a tough position to see what he does. Obviously, he kind of put all his eggs in one basket where it was like, I'm going in there and I'm going to win. And that's very good, with these fighters. They're very confident. But like I said, this is the fight game. Anything could happen. We just saw Sterling get knocked out. And yeah, so like I said, I think he needs to think about Marab in the division. And, even Dana White suggests that Sterling move up in weight class, So, like I said, it's kind of one of those where I believe Sterling should move up in weight class at this point and let Marab, you know, uh, just go for that championship belt after O'Malley rematches Cheeto Vera. So comment down below what you guys think. What you guys think Sterling should do. There was a little brief moment I thought Sterling was going to retire because he was kind of in that position where it's like, well, I just got knocked out. I can't fight for the belt in the up weight class, and then I can't continue here because my boy Marab is trying to fight for the championship belt. So, who knows what he does, but man, I'm definitely excited to see what's next for the bantamweight division. And obviously, we got a superstar as a champion, Sugar Show O'Malley. So, like I said, I'm just super excited to see these next upcoming fights, UFC events, what's next for the division, who comes in, up and comers, etc. So, I'm super excited to see Marab fight for the title shot. So Marab is one of those fighters, man, where it's like I really enjoy watching because of how great he is. So, like I said, that's post UFC 292. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join MMA Fantasy Picks, right? Go to my Instagram, MMA, the Caged In MMA, and click the link in the bio to join Fantasy Picks. And yeah, go ahead. Keep in mind, tag Dana White down below to give me tickets. It's like I'm a huge fan. I need to experience one of these fights in person. Prime, I wouldn't mind, a sponsor, or Bruce Buffer, sponsor for your perfume. Who knows, man? Which smells great, smells phenomenal, right? This is actually now my go-to perfume. But anyways, like I said, I need to experience one of these fights in person. I need a sponsor or something. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It's your host, Ebit Sochiwa. This is Caged In MMA, and episode 8. We are out. Peace.